Welcome to UBI Unplugged, breaking down the future of income. Glad to be here to unpack this really interesting intersection of universal basic income, esports, and where it all might lead.
Yeah, it sounds ambitious. UBI Esports. I'm not entirely sure how they connect, to be honest, but I'm definitely open to hearing more. Skeptical, but open.
Cautiously optimistic is probably where I sit. There's definitely potential, especially when we think about the future of work and leisure, but the devil's always in the details, right? So yeah, let's dive in.
Exactly. And I think that's a great way to frame it. It's not about silver bullets, but rather thinking about systems and how they interact. Let's start with what's top of mind for you guys in terms of UBI these days. I've been seeing some concerning trends.
For me, the cost. Always the cost. Every time I see UBI mentioned, it's like, oh, we'll just print more money. Or taxes on the rich. Which, okay, maybe. But that's never a sustainable solution, is it? How do you make it, real?
Right, the funding mechanisms are crucial, and it's not just the initial cost, it's the long-term projections. What happens when the economy dips? What happens if the tax base shrinks? You need built-in stabilizers. I was reading about a proposal that linked UBI to a carbon tax, which is interesting, but also has its own set of problems.
Yeah, linking it to specific taxes is definitely one approach. The carbon tax angle is interesting, but then you're making UBI dependent on something that might itself be politically unstable, right? I'm seeing a lot of frustration, particularly with voters who previously supported certain administrations on economic promises. If they feel betrayed, what stops them from supporting someone promising something else again? Maybe UBI could be more direct.
Betrayed how? Because they didn't get rich overnight? I mean, seriously, what promises are realistic in the first place? And UBI just feels like another unrealistic promise?
I think it's more about a sense of economic security and opportunity. People feel like the system is rigged against them, that the pie is shrinking, and everyone's fighting over smaller and smaller slices. And promises of tax cuts or deregulation haven't really changed that for a lot of people.
Exactly. And that's where UBI in theory comes in. It's about providing a baseline of security, a foundation that people can build on, not a handout, but a hand up. But the political dysfunction, Congress seems unable to address these issues effectively. Can UBI bypass that gridlock?
Bypass? How? You still need Congress to pass the UBI in the first place. It's like saying you can bypass traffic by teleporting. Cool idea. Doesn't exist.
Well, there are different ways to think about it. Pilot programs at the state or local level, for example. Or even exploring alternative funding models that don't rely solely on federal appropriations. But you're right, ultimately, you need political will.
And that political will comes from demonstrating the benefits, which brings us back to esports. How does UBI potentially change the landscape for both professional and amateur esports? Because the economic barriers to entry are real, right? Especially for aspiring pros. Think about it. If you don't have to worry about basic needs, you can invest more time and resources into training and competing.
Okay, I see the connection slightly better now. So UBI allows more people to play video games? Is that the argument? Sounds like a recipe for a very unproductive society.
It's not just about playing video games. It's about unlocking potential. It's about allowing people to pursue their passions and develop skills without the constant pressure of financial survival. And esports is a legitimate career path for some. It's a growing industry.
Exactly. And think about the amateur scene. Right now, a lot of amateur esports relies on people squeezing in practice time after work or school. With UBI, you potentially have more people with the time and resources to participate, creating a larger talent pool, a more vibrant ecosystem.
Vibrant ecosystem of gamers? I'm still not sold. What about the people who don't want to play video games? Are they just subsidizing the gamers? Seems unfair.
Well, that's the universal part of universal basic income. It's not just for gamers, it's for everyone. And the idea is that by providing that baseline, you free people up to contribute to society in other ways, whether it's starting a business, pursuing education, or volunteering in their community.
Right. And let's be honest, the future of work is uncertain. Automation is going to displace a lot of jobs. Esports, content creation, streaming, these are all areas where people can potentially earn a living in the new economy. UBI can provide a safety net while people transition and adapt.
Okay, that argument I can get behind a little more. The automation thing is real. But still, esports. It seems so niche. What about retraining programs for more practical skills?
You can have both. It's not an either or situation. Retraining programs are important, but they're not always effective, and they don't address the underlying issue of economic insecurity. UBI can complement retraining programs by providing people with the time and resources they need to succeed in those programs.
And think about the pressure on individuals to find any job, even if it's low paying and doesn't utilize their skills. UBI gives people the breathing room to be more selective, to find work that is more fulfilling, and that contributes more to society. It's about empowering individuals to make better choices.
Okay, so more choice. I get that. But how does UBI affect the esports industry itself? Sponsorships, viewership, the whole shebang?
That's where it gets really interesting. If you have more people with disposable income, you potentially have a larger audience for esports, more people willing to spend money on merchandise, tickets, subscriptions. That could attract more sponsors and investment into the industry.
Exactly. And it's not just about disposable income, it's about attention. If people aren't constantly stressed about making ends meet, they have more mental bandwidth to engage with the things they enjoy, like esports. So you might see higher viewership numbers, more active communities, and a deeper level of fan engagement.
But wouldn't the sponsorships just dry up? If everyone has free money, why would companies need to advertise as much? Wouldn't they just cut their marketing budgets?
I don't think so. Advertising is about more than just reaching people who are struggling to make ends meet. It's about building brand awareness, creating desire, and influencing consumer choices. And that still matters, regardless of whether people have a UBI.
Plus, think about the types of sponsorships that might emerge. You might see more sponsorships from companies that align with the values of the esports community, companies that are committed to social responsibility. Because if people have a basic level of economic security, they might be more discerning about the brands they support.
So like ethically sourced gaming chairs? Sustainable energy drinks? I'm struggling to picture it.
It's not just about niche products. It's about companies demonstrating a commitment to a more equitable and sustainable future. And that can be a powerful marketing message, especially to younger audiences.
And the content itself might change. You might see more esports content that addresses social issues, that promotes diversity and inclusion, because the audience will be more diverse and more engaged with those issues.
So, less trash talk, more PSAs. That sounds incredibly boring. I think you're overestimating the moral compass of gamers.
It's not about forcing a particular agenda. It's about reflecting the values of the community. And I think there's a growing desire for more positive and inclusive content in esports.
Yeah, and the esports community is already pretty good at self-regulating. They call out toxic behavior, they support marginalized groups. UBI could empower them to do even more.
Okay, but what about the potential downsides? I still see a lot of risks here. What if UBI doesn't increase fan engagement? What if it just leads to a bunch of couch potatoes glued to their screens?
That's a legitimate concern. And it highlights the importance of designing UBI programs that encourage participation and engagement. It's not just about handing out money. It's about creating opportunities for people to connect with their communities and pursue their passions.
Exactly, and that's where the policy details matter. How do you structure UBI to incentivize work, education, and community involvement? How do you prevent it from becoming a disincentive to work? These are all crucial questions.
And nobody seems to have good answers. Everyone just says, oh, we'll figure it out later. That's not reassuring.
While there are different models being proposed and tested, some involve conditional UBI, where you have to meet certain requirements to receive the full amount. Others focus on providing access to education and job training alongside the cash payments.
I think the key is to view UBI as part of a broader ecosystem of social support. It's not a replacement for existing programs, but rather a complement to them. And it needs to be designed in a way that is responsive to the needs of different communities.
So, more bureaucracy, more government programs? That sounds like a nightmare. I thought the whole point of UBI was to simplify things.
The idea is to streamline the delivery of benefits, to reduce the administrative overhead associated with existing welfare programs. But you're right, it needs to be implemented carefully to avoid creating new layers of bureaucracy.
And it needs to be transparent and accountable. People need to be able to see where the money is coming from and how it's being spent. That's essential for building trust and maintaining public support.
Trust? In the government? Good luck with that. Especially with all the stuff that's been going on lately. It's hard to trust anyone.
I hear you. There's a lot of political polarization and a lot of skepticism about institutions. But I think people are also hungry for solutions for policies that can actually improve their lives. And UBI, if implemented correctly, could be one of those policies.
Right. And think about the impact on local economies. If people have more money to spend, they're more likely to support local businesses, to invest in their communities. That could create a virtuous cycle of economic growth.
Or they'll just spend it all on imported goods from Amazon. Let's be real.
That's why it's important to promote local businesses and to create incentives for people to shop locally. It's not just about the money itself, it's about creating a sense of community and connection.
And it's about empowering people to make informed choices about where they spend their money. If they understand the benefits of supporting local businesses, they're more likely to do so.
Okay, so more education. Always the answer, right? But what about the immediate problems? People are struggling now. UBI sounds like a long-term project. What do we do in the meantime?
That's a valid point. UBI is not a quick fix. It's a long-term investment. But there are things we can do in the meantime to address immediate needs. Expanding access to food assistance, affordable housing, and healthcare, for example.
And raising the minimum wage, strengthening unions, and investing in job training programs. These are all important steps that can help to alleviate economic hardship and create more opportunities for people.
Minimum wage, unions, those are fighting words to some people. It's never that simple.
I know, everything is politically charged these days, but we need to find common ground to identify policies that can benefit everyone, regardless of their political affiliation.
And that's where UBI could potentially play a role. It's a policy that appeals to people across the political spectrum. Some people support it because they believe it will reduce poverty and inequality. Others support it because they believe it will simplify the welfare system and reduce government bureaucracy.
I still don't see it, but I'm willing to be proven wrong. So let's say UBI is implemented. What does the future of esports look like? 5 years from now? 10 years from now?
I think you'd see a more diverse and inclusive esports community. More female players, more players from underrepresented backgrounds, more amateur leagues and tournaments, more opportunities for people to pursue esports as a career.
And you'd see more innovation in the industry, new games, new formats, new ways for fans to engage with esports, because people would have the time and resources to experiment and create.
More streaming, more online tournaments, more cat videos with gaming commentary? Where does it end?
The possibilities are endless, but the key is to create a sustainable and equitable esports ecosystem, one that benefits everyone, not just the top players and the big corporations.
Right. And that requires a holistic approach, one that addresses the economic, social, and cultural factors that shape the esports landscape. UBI can be a part of that approach, but it's not the only solution.
So it's complicated. Got it. As always. But I appreciate you guys walking me through this. I'm still skeptical, but I'm a little less resistant to the idea. Maybe.
That's all we can ask for. It's a conversation that needs to keep happening. The future is uncertain, and we need to be open to new ideas.
Absolutely. And thanks for joining us on UBI Unplugged. We'll be back next time with another deep dive into the world of universal basic income. Until then, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep imagining a better future, one that could maybe include a professional esports career.
I still think I'd rather be a professional napper. But hey, to each their own.
And maybe with UBI you could be. Thanks for listening.